Joining us now is the Senate Minority Whip, Jon Thune. Senator, good to see you. So the language from China becoming ever more strident, capped off with this tweet from a fellow who is a commentator for Chinese state media, Global Times. I don't imagine that this is a personal sentiment of his. He says, if U.S. fighter jets escort Pelosi's plane into Taiwan, it is invasion. The PLA has the right to forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and the U.S. fighter jets, including firing warning shots and making tactical movement of obstruction. If ineffective, then shoot them down. What should Biden be saying to China at this moment?
Well, I think, John, what he's got to do is project strength. I mean, we are where we are with this situation, and it appears at least that on her trip she's going to make a stop there. And we've always had a relationship, and these are sovereign nations, and we have elected officials that have visited Taiwan in the past, and that should continue. So I think the president needs to make it clear that if we have diplomats coming from the United States who have, work to do, negotiations and discussions to have with the Taiwanese government, that he's going to support that. I think the rhetoric around this the last few days, I think projects weakness, and that's something that this administration shouldn't be doing, particularly now.
A lot of people are saying that the Biden administration is projecting weakness, but it would also appear that there might be a fear in China of Xi Jinping projecting weakness. They've got this Communist Party Congress series of meetings coming up at which he is expected to try to grab an unprecedented third term as the president of China. And if Nancy Pelosi shows up in Taiwan, despite all the saber rattling from China, that could be a real embarrassment for him and make him look weak. Are you concerned that that might provoke him into a more strident response?
Well, I think, like I said, John, we've had groups, I know colleagues of mine who have visited Taiwan, not real recently, but not that long ago, and certainly, again, have that right. And I don't know what, the leader of China decides to do in this circumstance. I understand a lot of political pressure there, too, but I don't think it would be incredibly provocative if he were to do something to intervene to try and demonstrate that, strength going into an election. I think he should let well enough alone and understand, again, that these are countries with whom we have relationships, and government to government. Those types of discussions ought to be able to continue. And I would certainly hope that he would treat it that way. And I think our president needs to acknowledge the fact that we are going to have folks who are going to go to Taiwan. And this, in case, is the speaker, which is a high level, obviously, member of Congress. But we've had delegations there before, and this should be viewed the same way, I would think, by the Chinese.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes in coming days. We do not know if Nancy Pelosi will actually go to Taiwan, but she's leaving today, so we'll be watching that closely. Wanted to ask you about this PACT Act, which is the burn pit bill. Most Republicans voted against that bill yesterday. It authorized $280 million in new spending to help veterans. Jon Stewart, formerly from the Daily Show, was on Capitol Hill yesterday in support of this. He didn't like the fact that Republicans voted against it. Listen here to what he said.
Tell someone with cancer that's been fighting this for years that eventually they'll get the help that they've earned. That is not an acceptable answer. It is despicable to continue to use America's men and women who are fighting for this country as political pawns. This bill is utterly and completely focused on veterans' issues. There is no pork in it. It is a kosher bill.
Senator, you were among the Republicans who voted against this. What was the reason for that?
Well, I think most Republicans, I would think all Republicans and all members of Congress, John, want to address the issue, the underlying issue here, and that is those who've been adversely affected by burn pits as a result of their service. This issue got prompted by a screw-up the Democrats made. This bill passed the Senate weeks ago, months ago, went to the House, and because of a technicality, couldn't pass there. So the House Democrats, Senate Democrats screwed this up. So the House had to pass it again, send it back to the Senate. And what Pat Toomey is attempting to do is do something that should have been done the first time when this passed in the Senate, and that is to fix the way this bill is funded in a way that makes the bill not only stronger, but hopefully much more fiscally responsible. It's a very simple fix. All they got to do is add it. The bill passes on Monday, and it's really that easy.
So when will this bill get passed, and will it get passed?
Well, as soon as the Democrats agree, I think, to fix this, basically screw up that was in the bill originally, and which Pat Toomey has raised and is asking for the Democrats in the Senate, who control the majority there, to allow him to offer an amendment to address this. I think once that happens, then the bill, whether it gets amended or not, remains to be seen. But one way or the other, ultimately the bill is going to pass. It had 85 votes in the Senate when it went through the first time. And like I said, most senators on both sides are supportive of what this bill attempts to accomplish.
All right. Senator Jon Thune, we'll see if it does pass. Certainly the veterans urgently need some relief. No question about that. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.